We're going to bring you back to this developing story that we are watching out of Sweden. There are reports that a truck has crashed into a building in the capital city of Stockholm. Swedish radio is reporting at least 2 people are dead. This is a busy shopping area. Let's listen into our partner, Sky News.
No words beyond that which we've had from the police thus far, though, in terms of fatalities. At least 2 people have died. But in a pedestrianised area, a truck travelling at speed going into a shop front, little surprise that there have been 2 fatalities. Yes,
and clearly at this stage with all of these kinds of incidents, people don't want to necessarily leap onto a bandwagon to say vehicle-borne attack. This bears similarities, of course, to events in Nice and, of course, events on March 22nd in Westminster. But it is fair to say at the moment that SVT, the Swedish public service television station, are reporting that they are being told that Swedish police are treating this incident as a possible terror attack. People will know, of course, that if we cast our minds back to March 22nd here in the United Kingdom, there was a major terror incident involving one man, a vehicle which of course ploughed into people on Westminster Bridge, then into a railing, then of course he got into the palace or the grounds of the Palace of Westminster, and at that point it was said by Islamic State that they were not saying they were responsible for it, but that they had inspired this man. Now, how true that is, we of course will never really particularly know, because he was shot dead by the security services at the scene. But the sense being that using a vehicle to carry out this kind of attack is a sort of modus operandi which has been inspired by Islamic State, and we've seen it put to effect, of course, in Nice and also in Berlin.
Well, a little earlier we spoke to Peter Wolodarski. He's a local journalist, and he provided us with a bit of insight into exactly what has been happening there, but also just exactly what the conditions are like on the streets of this pedestrianised area in central Stockholm.
Well, the very latest is that, and it's confirmed that, as you mentioned, a lorry has been driven into a department store in central Stockholm on this Friday afternoon, and 3 people have been killed, and armed police have cordoned off a major area. An unconfirmed report says that the lorry driver first drove into people on Drottninggatan, which is one of the main central streets in the city, a mainly pedestrian street and the main shopping area of central Stockholm, and it then drove into the big department store Åhléns. And Swedish radio, public service broadcaster, reported at least 3 people have been killed in the incident, and news just coming in of shooting in another area in central Stockholm, in the district called Fridhemsplan, which is a 20-minute walk away from Drottninggatan. So that's just coming in reports from Stockholm.
Peter, it appears that there may well be two separate incidents ongoing in Stockholm.
These are 2 separate areas in central Stockholm, and we have information regarding the shooting in the other district in Stockholm just coming in.
At this time of day, this truck has headed into the department store. How busy would central Stockholm have been? You mentioned that this was a pedestrian area.
Yes, it's a pedestrian area, and it's the main shopping district in central Stockholm, so a lot of people would be there on a Friday afternoon, and no vehicles driving at that place usually.
Well, the latest we're hearing from Swedish police is that there are many injuries there. That presumably not surprising to you. How would a vehicle have gotten into that pedestrian area? Are there no barriers? Are there no security measures to guard against that?
There are barriers, but well, we don't have exact details of that. It's the same area where we had a terror attack 5 years or some 7 years ago, where no one was killed, but the suicide bomber was killed. Police has not said that this is a terror attack, but of course they look at the situation very seriously.
In London, people are now very used to seeing armed police, seeing security barriers, particularly in and around Parliament. What is the level of security on the ground in Stockholm, in the Swedish capital?
Well, you can't really compare it to the situation in London. Of course, there are police in the city, but not in the way you see in London or in Paris. So it's a different situation here.
So it would not be the case that pedestrianised areas, as frankly happens in pretty much every city in the UK now, pedestrianised areas
not with machine guns or heavy or patrolling in that way that you see in both Paris and in London.
What is the view amongst the Swedish public about the likelihood of attacks such as this? If we assume for a moment that this was a terror attack, is this a prospect that the Swedish people have been considering, or is this a surprise in the way that it clearly appears to be?
Well, the police have for several years now talked about an increased risk, terror risk, so people have been prepared, and it has happened. We had a terror attack here 7 years ago, so of course everyone has thought about the possibility. It hasn't been confirmed yet that this is a terror attack. That is important to say.
Well, having advised the public to stay away from the city centre for obvious reasons, the Swedish news agency TT is now confirming that all subway traffic has been shut down in Stockholm. Our correspondent Lisa Holland is still with us. Images such as this, and again we must reiterate that we are as yet cannot confirm that this was a terror attack, although the police locally are investigating the possibility. It is so very easy for someone in command of a vehicle to cause significant amounts of harm with very little effort.
It is, and you know, we have this expression, don't we, a modus operandi of people who are inspired by Islamic State, and I must stress at this point that we have absolutely no evidence to say that this was a terror attack perpetrated by someone from Islamic State, save to say that the public service Swedish television station SVT is reporting that they have been told that Swedish police are treating the incident as a possible terror attack. And of course, at this stage, given recent events right across Europe, not least here in the United Kingdom on Westminster Bridge just a few weeks ago, and of course at the Christmas market in Berlin, not to mention the promenade in Nice last summer. Of course, there will be this suspicion that this vehicle-borne attack was a terrorist incident. Now, what we know is that it happened at about 3 o'clock local time in Stockholm, the Swedish capital. The suggestion is, of course, that this vehicle was used to drive through the crowd and then ended up in front of this department store.
Well, as we approach the end of this hour, these are live pictures from the centre of Stockholm, where police have confirmed that at least 2 people have died and many people have been injured after a truck ploughed into a department store in a pedestrianised area of the city.